My sister gave a speech at my wedding, laughing. She wrote 137 love letters to her ex who ghosted her. That's commitment. People laughed loudly. One guest even said, "Yikes, cringe." Then my husband pulled out one of those letters. Want to know who sent this one? He looked right at her. Everyone froze. I never thought my wedding would be the day my family would be exposed for all the unresolved drama that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface for years. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, a celebration of love, commitment, and the start of a new chapter with Ryan, the man I knew without a doubt I wanted to spend my life with. Ryan and I met 3 years ago in a coffee shop. It sounds cliché, but I swear it felt like a scene from a romantic movie. He was everything I had hoped for: kind, funny, intelligent. It didn't take long for us to fall in love, and we quickly started making plans for the future. Everything seemed perfect, except for one thing: my family. Growing up, my sister Harper and I were close. But as we got older, things changed. She was always the wild one, the free spirit. I was the more cautious one, the one who followed the rules. We both had our issues, mine with lingering insecurities, hers with a biting sarcasm and a habit of pushing boundaries. When Ryan proposed, I was overjoyed. He was perfect for me in every way, but I also couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right with Harper. She had always been a bit of a troublemaker, always challenging authority, always making sharp, biting comments at the worst possible times. But I thought, it's my wedding day. Surely, she'll keep it together. I was wrong. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. The sun was shining down on the vineyard where we had decided to get married, the air warm with just the right touch of spring breeze. The flowers were perfect, and I felt a deep sense of peace as I walked down the aisle toward Ryan. He looked at me with a smile that made my heart skip a beat, his eyes full of love. It was everything I had imagined. But my happiness was short-lived. After the ceremony, we all moved to the reception hall. Laughter and music filled the air as the guests enjoyed the evening. Ryan and I shared our first dance, the soft melodies enveloping us as we swayed together. Then came Harper's speech. She stood up, glass in hand, and I could see that mischievous grin spread across her face. I braced myself. Harper wasn't the type to give a heartfelt speech. No, she liked to be the center of attention, and her brand of humor could be sharp. But I never imagined she would go this far. "I just want to say a few words about my sister, Veronica," Harper began, her voice warm, though there was something teasing in the tone. "You know, Veronica is one of the most amazing, driven people I know. She's got her life together, and then, there's her love life." The room chuckled lightly, and I could feel my stomach twist. "She's a hopeless romantic," Harper continued. "She's always believed in love, maybe a little too much. But you know, when I think of Veronica and love, there's one thing that always comes to mind." My eyes darted toward Ryan. He was smiling, oblivious, or maybe trying to hide his concern. The guests were all listening intently, probably wondering where this was going. "See," Harper said, her tone growing a little more dramatic, "Veronica is so committed to the idea of love. She wrote 137 love letters to her ex-boyfriend after he ghosted her." That's right. 137 letters. One for each month she spent thinking he might come back. Laughter rippled through the room. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I felt a sick knot form in my stomach. Ryan looked at me, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. I could see him processing the words, but there was nothing he could do. Not in front of everyone. Harper was relentless, her grin widening. "And here's the kicker," she continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "the guy never came back. He ghosted her completely." The laughter grew louder. I felt like I was shrinking under the weight of the ridicule. Some guests were even snorting, and I could hear one of them say, "Yikes, cringe." I could barely keep my composure. The past few years had been difficult for me, but no one knew the depth of my heartache after my ex disappeared without a trace. I had been in love with him. Truly in love. And while I had tried to move on, I was never able to shake the feeling that something was left unresolved. And now, Harper, in front of all my friends and family, was turning that pain into a joke. She was making me the punchline. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as a cold sweat broke out on my skin. I was about to get up and leave, just run away from the laughter, from the shame, from the people who had no idea what they were really laughing at, when Ryan stood up. He didn't say a word at first. He just reached into the pocket of his tuxedo, pulled out an envelope, and calmly walked over to Harper, who was still basking in the aftermath of her joke. The room went dead silent. Ryan looked at Harper, his eyes narrowing slightly, and then he held up the envelope for everyone to see. "I have one of those letters right here," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "And I'm not just going to show it to you. I'm going to tell you who sent it. Because it wasn't Veronica." A collective gasp swept through the room. My stomach dropped. What was he doing? "Want to know who sent this one?" Ryan continued, his voice carrying through the hushed room. "It was you, Harper." I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ryan stepped closer, his gaze fixed firmly on my sister, who was now standing there, completely speechless. "That's right," Ryan said, the smirk on his face barely perceptible. "These letters, these commitment letters you've been making fun of? They were written by you. Not Veronica." Harper's face drained of color, and for a moment, it was like time had stopped. The entire room stood frozen. Harper opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her lips trembled as she tried to process what was happening. "I guess you weren't quite so committed to letting her go after all, huh?" Ryan added, his tone cool, almost mocking. "You were the one who wrote the letters. Not Veronica." The silence was suffocating. People were looking around, unsure of what to say. Some of the guests exchanged uncomfortable glances, and I could see a few whispering to each other. No one knew what to make of this sudden turn of events. Harper turned on her heels, not even trying to defend herself, and stormed out of the room. I stood there, shaking, unsure of whether to be angry, relieved, or just numb. Ryan walked over to me, still holding the letter, and placed his hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want to do that, but I couldn't just stand there and let her make a mockery of you." I was still in shock, trying to process what had just happened. The laughter that had once echoed through the room was now replaced by a thick silence. Ryan's words, though calm and controlled, seemed to hang in the air like a heavy fog. Everyone had been laughing at my expense, mocking me for something so painful, and then, he had turned the tables in the most unexpected way. The tension in the room was palpable. Guests shifted awkwardly in their seats, some not knowing what to say, others too stunned to speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there, my heart racing, my mind still replaying Ryan's words over and over again. I wanted to be angry at him for doing this at my wedding. I wanted to scream at him for making it all so public. But, somewhere deep down, there was a part of me that was grateful. Grateful that someone who actually loved me, had the guts to stand up and expose Harper for what she truly was. Ryan gave me a look, as though silently asking if I was okay. I wasn't sure how to respond. I wanted to burst into tears, but I wasn't sure if I was crying from relief or from a mix of anger, embarrassment, and confusion. My sister had just been exposed in front of everyone, and my heart was torn between sympathy for her and the lingering frustration I had felt over the years. "I didn't want to do it like that," Ryan said softly, as if reading my mind. He took my hand, his grip firm but comforting. "But she was humiliating you, V. She made a joke out of something you'd been carrying for years. And you didn't deserve that." I didn't. "I didn't think she would go that far," I whispered, shaking my head. "I mean, Harper has always been a little, much, but this? She just crossed a line." Ryan squeezed my hand, his voice low but reassuring. "You didn't deserve that, and I couldn't just sit there and let her keep making you the punchline. Not when I know how much that pain still lingers for you." For a moment, I just stood there, letting his words sink in. But as I looked around the room, I noticed that the tension wasn't just in the air, it was in the eyes of the guests. Some were still processing what had just happened, and a few were whispering to each other in hushed tones. I couldn't tell if they were judging me, feeling sorry for me, or just in shock. The reception, once filled with laughter and dancing, had come to an abrupt halt. The energy had shifted from joy to something much darker and heavier. I felt trapped in my own skin, as if I couldn't escape the overwhelming feeling of exposure. The night was supposed to be about celebrating love, but it had somehow become a stage for drama and humiliation. Ryan noticed my discomfort and gently guided me to a quiet corner of the room. I leaned against the wall, trying to collect myself. I couldn't stop replaying the moment in my head, the sound of the laughter, the way everyone had reacted to Harper's cruel joke, and the sickening realization that I had been the brunt of it. It felt like my entire past had been put on display for everyone to see. "I'm sorry, V," Ryan said again, his voice laced with regret. "I didn't think it would go down like this. I didn't know she'd make it so public." I shook my head, not knowing how to answer. I didn't expect it either. But I should have known better. She's always been like this. It's never been this bad. Ryan took a deep breath, his gaze serious as he looked at me. "We're getting through this, together. And we'll deal with Harper later. Don't let tonight's mess ruin the rest of what we've got. We've got each other, and that's what matters." I nodded, trying to calm myself. The sound of the reception, a muted murmur of voices and faint music, drifted in the background, but it felt miles away. I wanted to leave, to escape this nightmare that had become my wedding day. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't. I couldn't let Harper, of all people, steal this moment from me. It was mine, and Ryan's, and I wasn't about to let her taint it any more than she already had. But just as I started to take a deep breath and find my balance again, a few of our guests began to approach us. I could see them out of the corner of my eye, couples, friends, even some of my relatives, moving toward us, their faces unsure. They weren't coming to congratulate us, and they definitely weren't there to offer their well wishes. No, they were there to talk about what had just happened. Veronica, one of my old college friends, Amanda, said hesitantly, her eyes darting between me and Ryan. "Are you okay? I mean, that was a lot." I nodded stiffly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. I just wasn't expecting that, obviously." I glanced at Ryan, who gave me a reassuring nod, his hand still gently resting on my shoulder. "Look, I know Harper can be a lot," Amanda continued, clearly trying to sound sympathetic. "But this? It's it's a little crazy. She always seemed like she had a thing against you, but this was next level." I didn't respond immediately. How could I? There were so many layers to my feelings right now that I couldn't even begin to unravel them. The anger toward Harper was bubbling up, but at the same time, I felt this deep sense of shame. I couldn't tell Amanda that I had no idea how to handle this, how to handle a sister who had always been the wild card, always unpredictable, and who had now just humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. Another voice interrupted my thoughts. This one came from Greg, one of Ryan's childhood friends. "Hey, I don't mean to intrude, but I just wanted to say, that was a heck of a move on your part, Ryan. I've never seen someone do what you did before, especially not in a situation like this. I get why you did it. You were defending her. But man, that was a bold choice." Ryan shifted uncomfortably, but he didn't back down. "It had to be done," he said simply. "I don't regret it. Veronica deserves better than that. And I'll stand up for her, no matter what." I could see the admiration in Greg's eyes as he clapped Ryan on the back. "You did good, man. You did good." But for me, the whole situation felt like it was spiraling out of control. The day that should have been about love, about starting a new chapter with the man I chose, was turning into something I wasn't sure I could recover from. And then there was Harper. I didn't know what I felt about her anymore. The sister I had grown up with, the one who'd always been my confidant, my partner in crime, had she always been like this? Always willing to tear me down for the sake of her own amusement? The thought made me nauseous. I stood there in the corner of the room, surrounded by people who had witnessed my sister's cruel joke. Despite Ryan's reassuring words, despite his attempts to calm me down, I couldn't shake the feeling that my wedding day had been completely hijacked by Harper's reckless behavior. It wasn't just that she had humiliated me, it was the fact that she had made it public, turning something so deeply personal into a spectacle for all to see. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her feel the way I had felt in those moments. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let her take this day from me. I wasn't going to let her ruin the love I had for Ryan. I had already given her so much of my life, so many chances, so many explanations. It was time to finally put my foot down. As the evening wore on, the tension in the room never really dissipated. Guests whispered in small clusters, casting furtive glances in my direction. Ryan stayed close by, making sure I was okay, but I could tell that he was frustrated too. He wanted to fix it, wanted to protect me, but there was nothing either of us could do to undo what had already happened. At some point, the music started again, but it was clear that the night had lost its magic. People were still mingling, but the laughter from earlier had faded into awkward chatter. It felt like an uncomfortable silence had taken over. Even the waitstaff moved about the room quietly, as if they too felt the weight of the situation. And then, the door opened. Harper. She stood there in the doorway, her expression tense, her eyes darting around the room. The silence seemed to stretch even further, and for a moment, I thought I might burst into flames from the sheer intensity of what was happening. She hadn't left. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if she was coming back to apologize, to make excuses, or to just ignore the chaos she had caused. My heart was pounding in my chest as I locked eyes with her. Harper hadn't said a word when she stormed out earlier, but now, she looked different. The self-assured smirk I had seen earlier was gone. She seemed smaller somehow, almost unsure of herself as she stepped into the room, looking around at the still quiet crowd. Ryan's grip on my hand tightened. I glanced up at him, his face serious but calm. "Do you want me to?" he started, but I stopped him with a shake of my head. "No," I said, my voice firm but soft. "I need to do this." I walked toward her. The room seemed to hold its breath as I approached, and I could feel the eyes of the guests following me. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew this was my moment to finally take control of the situation. My sister had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it anymore. When I reached her, there was no smile on my face. No warmth, no familiarity. Only a calm, controlled anger that burned beneath the surface. I began, my voice steady, but each word felt like a weight. "You think you can just tear me down whenever you feel like it? You think it's funny to humiliate me in front of everyone?" Harper looked like she was about to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "Do you even know what you've done to me? You think this is a joke? That 137 letters to my ex was something I wanted to talk about? That it was something I ever wanted to do?" I paused, feeling the emotion begin to surface, but I pushed it down. It wasn't just some phase. It was pain. It was real. And you made it a joke. My pain, my humiliation, it was all a joke to you. Harper's eyes flickered with guilt. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. For the first time in a long time, she seemed vulnerable. "You don't get to hurt me like that anymore," I continued. "Not at my wedding. Not on the one day that's supposed to be about me and Ryan. I've let you get away with too much for too long. You always say the worst things, Harper, and I let it slide because you're my sister. But you don't get to do this to me anymore." Her mouth opened, as if she were about to say something, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I had never felt so strong, so sure of myself in my entire life. I wasn't the little sister anymore. I wasn't the one who would just let her walk all over me. "No," I said, holding up a hand. "You don't get to make excuses. You don't get to pretend like I'm the problem. This is on you, Harper. The silence in the room stretched out again, but this time, it felt different. It felt like everyone in the room was waiting for her response, watching her squirm. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of what she might say. I wasn't afraid of losing her, because I was starting to realize something. Harper had always been the center of attention. She had always been the one who had to be right, who had to have the last word. And for too long, I had let her take that from me. But not anymore. I don't need you to apologize, I said, my voice hardening, because I don't think you ever will. But I do need you to understand something. I'm done. I'm done letting you push me around, done letting you manipulate me. You're not the only one who can take control of this family. And if you want to keep pretending like everything is about you, then you can leave now. Because I won't stand for it anymore. I could feel the weight of my words settle in the room, and I saw the shift in people's expressions. They were starting to understand. Starting to see that I wasn't the victim anymore. That I had grown stronger, even if it had taken me too long to get here. Harper stood there, her mouth still open, her face a mixture of confusion, anger, and something else, something that looked a lot like realization. The guilt that had flickered in her eyes before had now morphed into something else, something more vulnerable. She didn't say a word. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to explain herself. She just turned around and walked out. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of her presence hanging over me. It wasn't relief that washed over me, though. It was something deeper. Something freeing. I turned back to Ryan, who had been watching the entire exchange. His eyes softened as I walked back to him, and he wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low and gentle. "I'm better than okay," I whispered, leaning into him. For the first time in a long time, I think I'm finally free. The rest of the night didn't go back to normal. But it didn't need to. The damage had been done, but so had the healing. I had taken control of my life, and for once, I wasn't afraid of the consequences. I wasn't just Veronica anymore. I was the woman who stood up for herself. And Harper? Well, she had her own battles to fight now. But I knew I wouldn't be part of that fight anymore. As for Ryan and me, we spent the rest of the night in each other's arms, surrounded by our closest friends, and slowly, the laughter returned. It wasn't the same as before, but it didn't matter. Because in the end, I had something far more important than a perfect wedding. I had peace. And that was enough.